Nathan Ellis stood before the mirror in his luxurious penthouse apartment, adjusting the collar of his expensive shirt. He frowned slightly, pondering why he had agreed to join a double date tonight. Lucas, his best friend from college, had been begging him all week to help him meet Michelle, the woman Lucas secretly admired. But Michelle didn't want to go alone, and to avoid making her uncomfortable, she suggested bringing along her best friend. Nathan reluctantly agreed, simply because Lucas couldn't bear the thought of being rejected. "It's just one evening," Nathan told himself as he pressed the elevator button. With his dashing looks and innate confidence, he always believed he could turn any situation to his advantage. "Besides, I've got nothing to lose." The restaurant chosen was a high-end venue where warm golden lights illuminated pristine white tablecloths, and the air was filled with a faint, soothing scent of roses. Nathan walked in, his eyes scanning the room to find Lucas. It didn't take long to spot his friend, seated near the window with Michelle. Next to her sat a woman with soft, naturally flowing brown hair, wearing a simple yet elegant jade green dress. As Nathan approached the table, he paused briefly. Sophie Dawson, Michelle's friend, was nothing like he had imagined. Lucas had described her as simple and somewhat shy, but before him sat a woman exuding calm and grace. The faint scar on her left cheek only added to her uniqueness, as if a testament to inner strength Nathan couldn't ignore. "Hi, I'm Nathan," he said, his voice steady though his eyes betrayed his curiosity. Sophie looked up at him, smiling faintly. "I'm Sophie. Nice to meet you." Her voice was warm, enough to make Nathan feel something unfamiliar beginning to stir. Throughout the evening, as Lucas and Michelle's conversation grew lively, Nathan found himself drawn to Sophie's way of speaking. She shared stories about her work at a nonprofit organization with a passion and sincerity that took Nathan by surprise. Though he often prided himself on his knowledge, he felt small in the presence of Sophie's intellect and inspiring heart. When the evening ended, Nathan realized something he had never considered before. Not appearances or success, but genuine kindness and sincerity were what truly made someone remarkable. What he thought would be a simple evening diversion had unexpectedly become a turning point he never anticipated. Welcome to Soul Stories. Today we bring you a meaningful story about love. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to catch more inspiring stories. Chapter 1. The Awkward Date. Nathan Ellis sat across from Sophie Dawson, the soft lighting of the upscale restaurant illuminating the awkwardness on her face. Nathan smirked slightly, maintaining a polite demeanor, though inwardly he had already resigned himself to what he expected to be a long, drawn-out evening. He despised being roped into forced social gatherings, and this was far from how he wanted to spend his Saturday night. "Thank you for helping Lucas," said Michelle, Lucas's calm and composed date. "I know this isn't something you usually do." Nathan gave a slight nod, his gaze briefly flicking to Sophie. "It's nothing," he said simply, turning his attention back to the glass of wine in front of him. Sophie, dressed in an understated jade green dress, stirred her lemonade quietly. She could sense Nathan's aloofness, but instead of feeling intimidated, found it amusing. It wasn't every day that someone like her encountered a man like Nathan, wealthy, handsome, and exuding self-assuredness. Yet his indifference somehow made her feel less pressured. The meal began with light conversation. Lucas and Michelle were quickly engrossed in their own world, leaving Nathan and Sophie in an atmosphere of palpable unease. True to his usual demeanor, Nathan stuck to superficial small talk, but Sophie, unwilling to let the silence stretch on, decided to engage him. "So Nathan, what do you do for a living?" she asked with a smile. "Lucas mentioned you're quite successful." Nathan set his wineglass down, a flicker of curiosity crossing his face. "I run an investment firm. Nothing too exciting." "Sounds complicated," Sophie replied with a smile. "I'm not great with finances, but I imagine you have to be pretty decisive to do well in that line of work." Nathan shrugged. "Decisiveness is part of it, but the key is knowing the game you're playing." His tone carried a trace of pride. Sophie paused briefly, then shifted the topic. "I work for a nonprofit organization that helps children with disabilities. It's a completely different kind of game, I suppose." Nathan was momentarily caught off guard, but masked his reaction quickly. "That kind of work must be Challenging. It is, but it's also very fulfilling, Sophie said, her eyes lighting up as she spoke about her job. We recently completed a project building a playground designed for children with disabilities. Every child deserves a safe space to play and grow, just like anyone else. Initially uninterested, Nathan found himself intrigued. He hadn't expected someone as unassuming as Sophie to speak about her work with such passion. How do you fund these projects? He asked, keeping his tone casual. We host events, seek sponsorships from companies, and sometimes rely on the kindness of the community, Sophie explained. You'd be surprised how willing people are to help when they understand the impact of what they're contributing to. Nathan raised an eyebrow, sensing an implicit challenge in her words. He wasn't used to being subtly grouped with those who might be unwilling to help, but instead of feeling offended, he found it oddly compelling. After dessert, Michelle and Lucas decided to leave early, leaving Nathan and Sophie alone at the table. Nathan felt momentarily uneasy, but quickly regained his composure. Looks like we've been abandoned, Sophie joked, a faint smile on her lips. Nathan looked at her, noticing for the first time the quiet confidence she exuded. It seems so, he replied, pouring more wine into his glass. Their conversation began to flow more naturally. Nathan discovered that Sophie not only had deep knowledge of social issues, but also a keen interest in art and culture. She spoke about attending small art exhibitions in the city, expressing her admiration for the subtleties of Van Gogh's works and the boldness of Picasso's creations. Do you like art? Sophie asked. Nathan chuckled. I like investing in art. Expensive paintings are a safe asset. Sophie laughed. So you appreciate art for its value, not its beauty? Nathan couldn't help but laugh with her. Maybe I should learn to see it the way you do. Sophie looked at him, sensing a rare moment of honesty from the man across the table. For the first time that evening, she felt a genuine connection. As the evening concluded, Nathan walked out of the restaurant with Sophie by his side. Contrary to his initial expectations, he found himself thinking the evening hadn't been a waste of time. Sophie wasn't like anyone he had ever met, not someone trying to impress or appear perfect. She was simply herself, and it felt refreshing. Sophie, he said as she prepared to step into the cab Lucas had ordered, I think we should meet again. Sophie looked surprised but couldn't hide her smile. We'll see, Nathan, she replied, leaving him standing there with an inexplicable feeling he couldn't quite place. Chapter 2. A Shift in Perspective. Nathan Ellis sat in the luxurious office of his skyscraper penthouse, a cup of cold coffee untouched on the table, as his gaze wandered through the glittering skyline of New York City. Yet he wasn't truly seeing any of it. The image of Sophie Dawson, with her gentle smile and bright eyes, lingered in his mind, refusing to fade. He couldn't understand why last night's dinner preoccupied him so much. What was supposed to be a simple favor for his best friend Lucas had now become the center of his thoughts. Sophie was unlike any woman he had ever met. There was something different about her, an understated confidence and a quiet magnetism that didn't seek attention yet held it effortlessly. That afternoon, after much deliberation, Nathan picked up his phone and sent a message. Sophie, I want to thank you for last night. If you're free, would you like to grab coffee tomorrow? Nathan wasn't used to feeling hesitant when reaching out to someone. Confidence, sometimes bordering on arrogance, was his default mode. Yet now a flicker of nervousness crept into his thoughts as he awaited her response. A few minutes later, his phone buzzed with a new message. Hi, Nathan. Thank you for the invitation. I didn't expect it, but I'll be there. Let's meet at Cafe Verona at 3 p.m. A strange sense of relief washed over him. He couldn't explain why, but the idea of seeing Sophie again filled him with both curiosity and anticipation. Cafe Verona, with its cozy ambiance and soft natural light, was the perfect place for a quiet meeting. When Nathan arrived, he spotted Sophie already seated at a corner table near the window, a small book resting on the table before her. She looked relaxed in a simple cream-colored dress, her hair neatly tied back. Nathan, she greeted him with a warm smile, you're right on time. For the first time in my life, I'll admit that being punctual was a priority today, Nathan joked, taking a seat across from her. Their conversation began with casual questions, but as the minutes passed, the walls between them seemed to fade, To Nathan's surprise, he found himself opening up in a way he rarely did. People think being a millionaire is a dream come true, he began, his gaze fixed on his coffee cup. But no one talks about the pressure. Everyone expects perfection, from business partners, employees, even family. Sophie listened attentively, her eyes reflecting genuine understanding. I imagine that kind of pressure isn't easy to handle, she said softly. But the fact that you face it every day shows you're stronger than you think. Nathan chuckled lightly, a flicker of comfort warming his chest. Thank you. Honestly, no one's ever said that to me before. Sophie then shared her story, pausing occasionally to sip her tea. When I was a child, I had a serious accident, she began, her fingers brushing the faint scar on her cheek. I had to undergo multiple surgeries and wear leg braces for years. Those injuries weren't just physical. They left emotional scars too. I was often teased for how I looked. Nathan listened intently, not interrupting. But instead of letting it define me, I chose to turn it into motivation, Sophie continued. I wanted to help others, people who've been hurt or feel abandoned, just as I once did. That's why I chose to work for a nonprofit. A wave of shame washed over Nathan. He recalled his initial coldness towards Sophie during their first meeting and the judgments he had made based solely on her unassuming appearance and the faint scar on her face. Those thoughts now seemed utterly irrelevant. Sophie, he said, meeting her eyes, I owe you an apology. I judged you based on appearances and my own assumptions. I was wrong. Sophie smiled, the kindness in her eyes making Nathan feel at ease. I've grown used to that, Nathan, but thank you for saying it. After their meeting, Nathan felt as though a new door had been opened. His perspective began to shift. At work, he started paying more attention to the stories of his employees rather than merely evaluating their performance. He also began to involve himself in the charitable activities he had previously only supported financially without much thought. Sophie, without realizing it, had become a catalyst for this change in Nathan. To her, compassion and authenticity were not grand gestures, but small, everyday actions that held profound meaning. Nathan told himself this was only the beginning. He didn't just want to change for himself, he wanted to prove to Sophie that he could be someone worthy of her trust and partnership. Chapter 3. Challenges and Conflicts. The relationship between Nathan Ellis and Sophie Dawson deepened as they spent more time together. Evening coffee dates at small cafes, leisurely strolls in the park, and hours-long conversations brought them closer. Yet amidst this growing warmth, challenges began to emerge, threatening the fragile balance they had built. Nathan, accustomed to lavish parties and elite social circles, started to feel the pressure from those around him. At a high-profile business gathering, his friends couldn't resist questioning his relationship with Sophie. Are you really dating her? Andrew, one of his friends, teased. She seems a bit ordinary, doesn't she? Exactly, another chimed in. We're used to seeing you with models or designers, but now, he shrugged, leaving his implication hanging in the air. Nathan's chest tightened. He didn't want to justify or defend his relationship to people who knew nothing about Sophie, yet their words lingered, stirring thoughts he thought he had already overcome. When Nathan shared this incident with Sophie, she offered a faint, bittersweet smile. Nathan, I know I'm not the kind of person they expect you to be with. And honestly, I don't need their approval. As long as you understand me, that's enough. Nathan grasped her hand, his gaze steady. I don't care what they think. As long as I have you, nothing else matters. But deep down, Nathan knew the societal pressure wouldn't simply disappear. One morning, Sophie received an email from an international nonprofit organization she had dreamed of working with. The email contained an offer, the position of project director in an East African country. It was an opportunity she couldn't easily refuse, a job that could impact thousands of children in need. However, the thought of leaving Nathan filled Sophie with turmoil. She loved him, and their relationship had become a significant part of her life. Yet if she let this opportunity pass, she would always wonder if she had abandoned a vital part of her dream. One evening, as they shared dinner at Nathan's apartment, Sophie decided to tell him about the offer. Nathan, she began, her voice gentle but serious, I received a job offer from the international organization I mentioned before. Nathan set down his fork, his eyes filled with interest. Really? That's incredible. So when do you start? Sophie hesitated, her gaze meeting his. The issue is, the job requires me to move to East Africa. Her words seemed to weigh down the room. Nathan looked at her, trying to grasp the full meaning behind what she was saying. Does that mean you'll leave here? Leave me? He asked, his voice suddenly subdued. I don't know, Sophie admitted. I love you, Nathan, but this is my dream, a chance that may never come again. Nathan stood, walking to the window where the city lights sparkled against the night sky. His heart clenched. The thought of losing Sophie was unbearable. Sophie, he said, turning to face her, I don't want you to go. I've never been afraid of losing someone like I'm afraid of losing you. Sophie rose from her seat, stepping closer to him. Nathan, I understand how you feel, but I don't want a relationship that makes me give up on who I am. I can't walk away from this opportunity and live with the regret of not following my dream. And what about me? Nathan asked, his voice thick with disappointment and fear. Aren't I part of your dream? Aren't we supposed to be the most important thing to each other? Tears shimmered in Sophie's eyes. You are the most important person to me, Nathan, but real love shouldn't force me to give up on the person I want to become. If you love me, you'll understand that. Nathan felt like his world was crumbling. He wanted to hold on to Sophie, but he also knew that forcing her to stay would only drive her further away. They didn't speak for days after the argument. Nathan buried himself in work, searching for a way to hold on to Sophie without making her feel constrained. Meanwhile, Sophie wrestled with her own emotions. She loved Nathan, but she also knew that if she gave up this chance, she wouldn't truly be herself anymore. One afternoon, Nathan appeared at the nonprofit organization where Sophie worked, holding a small bouquet of flowers, a rare gesture for him. When Sophie saw him, her heart ached. If this is what you want, I'll support you, Nathan said, his voice more sincere than ever. I won't stop you from pursuing your dream, but I want you to know that I'll be here, waiting for you no matter where you are. Tears spilled down Sophie's cheeks. She embraced him, feeling the sincerity in his every word. I don't want to leave you, she said, but I know I have to do this. Thank you for understanding. Sophie decided to accept the job, and a few weeks later she prepared to leave for East Africa. Nathan accompanied her to the airport, his gaze filled with love and a tinge of sadness. Go and do amazing things, he said, hugging her tightly one last time. I'll be here when you come back. I'll never forget you, Nathan, Sophie whispered, tears streaming down her face. You've shown me that love isn't about holding on. It's about giving each other the freedom to grow. As Sophie walked through the security gate, Nathan stood watching her until she disappeared from view. His heart felt heavy, but he knew this wasn't the end. It was merely the beginning of a new chapter in their story. Chapter 4. Love and Sacrifice. After Sophie left, Nathan Ellis's luxurious penthouse felt emptier than ever. Lavish parties, major projects, and important meetings no longer brought him excitement. Every moment, Sophie's image filled his mind. Her gentle smile, steadfast gaze, and a heart overflowing with love and compassion. Nathan realized that love wasn't just about keeping someone close. It was about giving them the freedom to pursue their dreams. But if there was a way to support Sophie while keeping her near, he knew he had to find it. One morning, Nathan sat at his mahogany desk, staring at the project plans Sophie had left behind for supporting children with disabilities. The numbers, ideas, and goals on paper made him feel both admiration and a burning desire to be part of her dream. That afternoon, Nathan called Sophie. The phone line stretched across thousands of miles, yet her voice was as gentle as he remembered. Nathan? I didn't expect you to call. I wanted to talk to you, Nathan began, his heart pounding. I've been thinking a lot, Sophie. I know how important your work is, but I also don't want us to be apart. What if there was a way for you to have both your dream and your love? Sophie was silent, a mix of surprise and curiosity evident in her tone. What do you mean? Nathan took a deep breath, then spoke slowly. I want to sponsor you to open a center for children with disabilities here in the city. A place where you can realize your vision without having to leave. Sophie felt a lump in her throat. Nathan's proposal was both unexpected and deeply meaningful. "Nathan, you don't have to do this." "I'm not doing this out of obligation," Nathan interrupted. "I'm doing it because I love you. You've changed the way I see the world. I want to be with you, but I also want to see you happy. This is how I can do both." After days of contemplation, Sophie called Nathan back. This time, her voice was steady. "Nathan, I don't know how to thank you. I'll come back, but not just for you. I believe this center can create a big impact, and I want us to build it together." Nathan smiled as he heard her agreement. He couldn't wait to get started. In the following weeks, they both threw themselves into the project. Nathan used his resources and connections to secure a location, garner support from businesses, and prepare the infrastructure. Sophie, with her experience and passion, took charge of planning, hiring staff, and organizing activities. The center gradually took shape. Named Haven of Hope, it would become a sanctuary for underprivileged children, providing education, care, and development opportunities in a nurturing environment. On the grand opening day, the center buzzed with joy and laughter. Tables were neatly set up, volunteers and staff bustled about, and families arrived with their children, whose eyes lit up as they explored the thoughtfully designed learning and play areas. Nathan stepped onto the stage dressed in a sharp suit but exuding genuine warmth. Holding the microphone, he addressed the crowd. "Thank you all for being here today. This center isn't just a project, it's a symbol of hope and change. But none of this would have been possible without the inspiration of one incredible person, Sophie Dawson." His gaze found Sophie in the crowd. "Sophie, you've changed my life. You've taught me to see the world not just through numbers or success, but through kindness and hope. You've made me a better person." To everyone's surprise, Nathan knelt down, pulling a small box from his pocket. He opened it to reveal a sparkling ring. "Sophie Dawson, will you build a meaningful future with me? Not just in our work, but in life? Will you marry me?" Tears glistened in Sophie's eyes as she stepped onto the stage. Without hesitation, she nodded. "Yes, Nathan, I will." Cheers erupted from the audience, children laughed and ran around, and the atmosphere was filled with love and joy. It was a sweet and emotional moment where love and sacrifice converged. After the grand opening, Nathan and Sophie were not just a couple in love, but partners in a shared mission. The Haven of Hope became their pride, a place that brought hope to hundreds of children. In the quiet evenings they spent together, they reflected on their journey, grateful for finding each other. Sophie wasn't just Nathan's inspiration, she was the heart and soul of the positive changes they had created. As Sophie once said, "True love isn't about holding on, but about building something greater together." Thank you for listening. What did you think of this story? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel.